So how do you follow up a masterpiece like Earthshock? Well, look, a lot of people are kind of harsh on time flight. I'm not really one of them. I enjoy it as just, it's fun, and when you got that, you don't really need all the brilliance and stuff. You've delivered a show that's not a waste of your time. You're entertained. But yeah, there's some silliness here, but primarily, I guess, well, maybe not primarily, but to me anyway, the strange manifestations that the Master, spoilers, the Master's the real villain here, creates to use as, I guess, sentries or whatnot. And they just, they appear out of smoke and stuff, and then they just look like giant, dried up dog turds. And then they trap the Doctor in soap suds. And then they trap Nyssa in soap suds. So basically, we begin with the Concorde disappearing, which it eventually did in real life. But apparently, the supersonic jets are making a comeback. So you may have new supersonic flights coming to an airport near you, provided you're allowed in it and can afford it. But anyway, that was the deal, and this Concorde disappears, and Heathrow Airport's like, holy crap, what's going on? So we need to investigate. And meanwhile, the TARDIS is in mourning because Adric died in the last episode, or the adventure, and Tegan says, well, let's just go back in time and get him, And there where it reveals some problems here. Now, this is a thing that comes up quite a bit because it's kind of you paint yourself into a corner type deal. Because if you can just undo everything, then there's never any problem. And so, and all that. But then oh no, it's one of the laws of time, and the Time Lords vow never to violate it. And even though, they do from time to time. And so the Doctor puts his foot down and says, no, you can't do that. Don't ever ask me of that again. And yet, yeah, he could have. I mean, how do you know? I mean, is there some means by which determines that, no, this is set, and if you do alter it, the ramifications could be very, terrible. But the thing is, just by sheer accident, Tegan stumbles into the Doctor's life, and for a while, he's trying to get her back. And he's saying, don't worry, we'll get you there on time for your first day as stewardess on for the airline. And he keeps screwing it up. They don't get to the right place. And eventually she just gives up and decides to stay. Well, what if he had? He still could. He still could get her there. But by now, who's to say? Because now we do know, of course, things happen differently for Tegan. She never goes back to that job. She doesn't get it. She loses it and all that sort of stuff. And, eventually she just quits because she's so horrified after the dialects, But history and time is set for where she is and where she goes and where she ends up and all of that sort of thing. Yet the Doctor was perfectly fine of taking her back there when clearly she wasn't existing in that time anymore. She went off to another planet. She went into other times and all that sort of stuff. But he does this all the time with side characters. There's people like at the beginning of this episode, he had the crew that was left of the freighter and everything. He returns them to their normal time and all that. Now, granted, he's within it, but they were in the distant past, which they probably should have stopped over and would have resolved this story very quickly. But it's something that, just don't think about it, yeah, he could have saved Adric. But you just have to say, when someone dies, that's it. That's that. Well, unless you're Clara, of course. So it needs some thinking through. Now, because he'd say, he didn't know this. He doesn't know for sure. He's going about what he does know about Tegan, is that he could have returned her and all that sort of stuff. But he doesn't know about Adric either. He knows he died, but he also knows that he could change that. I mean, you know, and what Tegan's life would have been had she not done that, you know, that kind of thing. So, but, well, he's the Time Lord, so I guess you just got to take his word for it. But anyway, so the rest of the thing here is, of course, yes, had they stayed in the past, they probably maybe could have found out what the Master was up to. So the planes keep disappearing, and where do they go? Well, they go way back in time, over 100 million years ago. And the Master's there in disguise for whatever reason. There's really no one else around except for people that he hypnotizes under his control. He makes them hallucinate that they're actually at their day-to-day lives at the airport and stuff. And but he's all dressed up in a costume because, you know, that's what the Master does, but there's really no need for it. And he's sitting there with what looks to be like a crystal ball, but it's, you know, it's some technological thing. But the source of his power is that he's manipulating and using these people called the Zerafin, who left their planet in the hopes that, a long time ago, obviously, to possibly colonize. They pollinated the Earth. They were looking at the Earth as a potential place to go to because their planet was doomed. The radiation was so bad they couldn't live there. But the ship crashed. They had some problems and whatnot, so they decided the only way to survive was to absorb themselves all into one entity and store themselves within this power core to wait out the condition they were suffering from, the radiation sickness and whatnot. So they did that, but at the moment they were waking up and reforming themselves into individual people. Well, the Master showed up and started shrinking them all down and taking over of them as the one entity they've become. And he was using the dark side of their desires against them so that he could do his wicked deeds. So he was not always in control of it, and that was the catch there. But so the Concord problem happens, and the Doctor just happens to land there and gets involved. And a toss to and a nod to Unit is here because this, in a lot of ways, this is a Unit story. He gets a pass from Unit and makes use of that and to investigate what's going on here. So they get another Concorde to repeat exactly what the previous one did, and ta-da, it disappears, and they go back 100 million years ago. And so there's this stronghold that I guess is the remnants of what the Zerafin had or built or what have you. And of course it's, you know, papier-mâché caves and stuff. I don't care about that. I think it's fine. And kind of like it when they kind of do some of that in the New Who too. But anyway, that's what it is. And the two girls go in to try to help the Doctor and whatnot. It's revealed here that Nyssa apparently is more perceptive of psychic projections and whatnot, as the Zerafin can contact her even better than the Doctor. And so it's, you know, something of note there. But as they're going, the Master has already captured the Doctor and some of the other pilots and whatnot, and he's trying to prevent them. So he torments them with images. Now, back then, I kind of thought, oh, this is because the Master knew about these entities, but there's one he couldn't possibly have. Now, the first one is Adric. Adric makes an appearance here, the last time you'll see him. And but you know, he had Adric and was using Adric to project a version of Adric into the TARDIS and, you know, Castor Valva and all that. So I thought, oh, he's still got, you know, the template of Adric and within his TARDIS or whatever. But no, he's just getting that from their memories. You know, they're thinking about him because they just lost him and all that. But they quickly figure out it's not him because he still has his badge on, which was destroyed attacking the Cyberman in the previous story. So that's that. So the other ones don't work either. He keeps trying, but they're not going to work. So the other two, Melker shows up, and damn it, I'm blanking on the other one. But the Pterolyptus shows up, and I'm like, well, look, they're just dragging out the old props. And So it doesn't work. They just walk right through it. But eventually, the core is found where the Zerafin are there, and the Master's defeated. Now, the Master, what was he doing? Why did he? And as luck would have it, he was stranded in that time on the Earth after somehow he escaped Castrovalva. We don't know how, but he did. But his TARDIS is damaged and can't leave. And so he needs a new power source. He's going to use them, but he can't quite access it, so he's trying to break it down. And eventually he gets it, but so this is where it does fall apart. I mean, the Doctor just says, well, I fixed this and I fixed that, and he won't be very happy, or, it won't work out for him and all that. And it's, yeah, okay. But ultimately, it's not a great episode. It isn't. And, of course, it has the terrible position of following Earthshock, so it really looks bad. So, I was thinking, like, Earthshock, it was probably Peter Davidson's Genesis of the Daleks, as it was, in comparison between his first season and Tom's first season. And I think that's true, even though Genesis, I think, is the greatest Doctor Who story ever done. This one, Earthshock was a masterpiece and a great one, probably the best of the Fifth Doctor's run. But he didn't get something like Revenge of the Cybermen to follow it, which Revenge of the Cybermen is no comparison to Genesis, but, it's a good story. And this one, it had some ideas and stuff, but, yeah, I mean, and in some ways, it's like, well, couldn't the Master have done it to escape? The simple idea of him using, like, reconverting his TARDIS to steal people from the future in the hopes that he could find utilized materials and whatnot, and of course use the crew of the ships as slave labor to construct the apparatus he would need to repower his TARDIS to escape. Something like that probably would have been better, but they added in this thing that he was also tormenting this whole race of beings who the Doctor sent back to their home planet here, not at the time they were in, but in the future where the planet is, habitable now. So, which again, you're kind of manipulating time there, Doctor Who. Gee, I wonder how that'll work out. Well, don't worry about that some other time. So, now the thing is kind of surprising is that it ends with Tegan not joining him and Nyssa as they leave. So it's kind of this, it's kind of silly, because it was, the Doctor's in trouble. Well, just call Unit again. You'd already done it. You saved everybody, just because the guy at the airport didn't believe the story until he sees the TARDIS fade away. Yeah, and there's no reason to leave Tegan there, but I guess he just did and said, well, I finally got her in her original time, and man, she's getting on my nerves. Yeah, I thought she was pretty hot, but nevertheless, he probably got irritated with her complaints. Maybe that was it. But he's not done with her yet, surprisingly. Well, maybe not surprisingly. But anyway, that's how they end the first season for the Fifth Doctor. Boy, I tell you, it's like, boy, you want to end on a high note, and as masterful as the Earthshock is, I mean, can you imagine ending it on that? And say, what, he's dead? And then, you gotta wait till next season. So, yeah, so they, hey, we gotta do something else. So, and hey, let's use some footage of Concorde. So those are cool. So, But anyway, I'm not as harsh to it. I do obviously see its flaws and all that, but yeah, I've seen far worse, haven't we all? Yeah. But anyway, so there we are. That's the first season for Peter Davison. My collection is not as complete of him as with Doctor Who. Maybe I'll look up some more and fill that out. But I do have Arc of Infinity, so that is coming. Probably get back to delving into Blake 7 since I finally finished the first season of that and move on to the second. So I might dip into that going forward here. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness. So many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.